Hello and welcome to another ATP geopolitics video, another Ukraine war update extra video. The second for today because there's so much to talk about, and goodness me, there's breaking news as well that I just had to include too. Obviously, most of you will know this by the time you listen to this. Please go and check out the first part of this Ukraine war update extra video that I released earlier to give you the extra understanding of what's going on in this war. So I'm going to start today with that breaking news, or this evening. Biden has announced, good old Biden here, US is going to send 31 Abrams tanks to Ukraine now. I mean, wow. So I was saying only earlier that it looks like it's going to be a year. Washington Post wrote an article saying, yeah, looks like they're going to send 30 Abrams on the back end of all the Leopards going, but it might be a year, it might even be more. It's a long-term thing. And then suddenly Biden made an announcement today. So President Joe Biden on Wednesday announced today that the United States is sending 31 Abrams tanks to Ukraine in its war against Russia. The US will also provide the necessary training and supplies needed to operate and run these tanks, he said. Interestingly, that also includes 8 M88 vehicles that can tow those tanks. So during a background call previewing Biden's remarks, senior administration officials said that the announcement is very much a continuation of our effort to provide Ukraine with the capabilities they need to continue to better defend themselves. It's also in keeping with that representative of a long-term commitment that we have to Ukraine's defense needs, a senior administration official said. So uh, that is absolutely fantastic. To continue, a quote from an official: the reason for 31 is because that is how many tanks would constitute a Ukrainian tank battalion. So we are specifically meeting that requirement. Additionally, the US will provide a training program to maintain and operate the tanks, as well as those 8 M88 recovery vehicles to go along with the Abrams tanks that will, quote, provide recovery operations to make sure that the Ukrainians will be able to keep these Abrams up and running. So that's the super important part. The training will not take place in Ukraine. Again, that's what we'd understand anyway. As Biden has been speaking to Schultz, this is all come on the back of also speaking to Macron, Sunak. You know, it's all about a concerted, joined up effort to provide assistance to Ukraine. This is pretty interesting development, I should say. And it looks like, you know, this call with Schultz, Macron, and Sunak has led to a change in direction. So here it says the decision to move forward with providing the tanks marks a reversal for the Biden administration, which had been resisting pressure from Germany to send them to Ukraine. US officials previously insisted Biden was not inclined to provide Abrams tanks to Ukraine because members of his national security team, including Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff General Mark Milley, did not believe they would be a net positive for the Ukrainians, given how difficult they are to operate and maintain. So, wow, this is fantastic, fantastic news, a great reversal in that decision. This then gets added to the leopards that we know, and the challenges, of course, that we know are being given or pledged to Ukraine. Adding these up will come to actually over 100 in terms of leopards, but there are some caveats here. So 14 challenges, 28 leopards that Germany and Poland have definitely approved, previously promised but not confirmed. So Portugal have said 4. Spain 20 to 50, but those aren't operational ones. They aren't the ones that they use. As far as I'm concerned, they are, or where they are, the ones that are warehoused, and some of them are not in a state of, well, in an operable state, basically. So they will take some work. Sweden unknown. Norway have said yes, and they think it's going to be 8. That's not definite. How many? Netherlands 18, Finland 14, Denmark 6. And then, of course, you had the 31 Abrams offered today. 31 Abrams, and it's all over the socials at the moment. How the Russians reacting to this, or Russian military reporter Kots is calling for his comrades to take the threat of tank supply seriously, also suggesting the latter could be operated by foreign crews. Talks about sort of Polish crews in that. Obviously, that's nonsense, but you're going to start seeing probably quite varied reaction to this from different places in the Russian information space. Um, uh, Interesting that also what came out today, this is the UK intelligence update. As previously reported, Russia has worked to prepare a small number of T-14 Armata main battle tanks for the type's first operational deployment to or in Ukraine. So this is a T-14, which is their most updated tank, but it's had delays to its kind of introduction to the armed services, being produced, 2014 to 21 in prototypes, and then 21 to present in its in its sort of serial version, as it says there. But there's only a sort of half dozen plus of these, I think, made in any serious way that could be used on a front line. So I've seen one footage of one being used on a training ground next to infantry who cheered it as it drove past. But interestingly, Jack Desh has reported earlier that Russian troops deployed in Ukraine have been reluctant to accept a small number of poorly made T-14 Armata main battle tanks provided by the Kremlin, says the UK Defence Intelligence. The tanks have previously had troubles with the engine and thermal imaging. Well, this is exactly what this update goes on to say. However, in recent months, deployed Russian forces were reluctant to accept the first tranche of the T-14 allocated to them because the vehicles were in such poor condition. It's unclear exactly what aspects of the vehicles prompted this reaction, but within the first 3 years, Russian officials have publicly described problems with the T-14's engine and thermal imaging systems. In 2021, Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu described the planned production run for 2022 as only an experimental industrial batch. Therefore, it's unlikely that any deployed T-14 tanks will have met the usual standards for new equipment to be deemed operational. This sums up the only upgrade short of Russia getting Chinese tanks or some other tanks somewhere else. This is the only real upgrade to their mechanized capacity, sorry, the capability that you can imagine, right? Bunch of T-14, and they're not happy with them because they are rubbish. At the same time, Ukraine's going to receive around 100 Leopards, uh, 14 Challengers, and 31 Abrams, and that is significant. That this together, if they can, as I talked about earlier in my news piece this morning, if they can produce these for Ukraine at the same time and get them all trained up, so they hit the battlefield, the battlefront at the same time rather than dribs and drabs, then these can form really strong battalions of modern mechanized equipment that can punch holes through the Russian front line. So, incredibly exciting news today for the Ukrainians, and it must be somewhat daunting news for the Russian. And let's just keep an eye open to see how the Russian information space uh, reacts to this, and the military bloggers and people like Igor Strelkov or Gherkin, and see what he has to say or they have to say. Moving on, let's have a look at a group of mobilized Russian mobilized soldiers, this time from Siberia, complaining about the tasks they need to fulfill. We are trained as territorial defense forces, they say, but we're thrown into a frontline assault group. We have 19 wounded and 2 killed in only 2 days. Soldier reads out his complaint. So this is something we see an awful lot of complaints from Russian mobilized soldiers, but it does give us an indication that things aren't going well. That life is difficult. These guys have just it's up against they're up against it really. Uh, who would want to be a mobilized Russian soldier just thrown onto the front line with very little equipment and training, just as essentially cannon fodder? This is how the Russians got defeated in Vodyane a couple of days ago, just north of Donetsk airport, during a failed assault. 36th Marine Brigade. So this is by Avdiivka, just to let you guys know, just in case you don't, or you've forgotten. So as we go down the Donetsk front line, Avdiivka is here, where they're trying to surround it, and down the south of it, there's an Opitny, as there is south of Bakhmut, and a Vodyane, as there is in lots of other places. Vodyane is quite a common name, but this is footage of how they repelled the attack in. Sorry, how they repelled the attack in Vodyane. It's quite. It's all a bit spliced together and trying to work out, the narrative of what happens. Plus, I can't speak. I don't understand that Cyrillic writing. But this is interesting. You've got some kind of armored recovery vehicle of some sort, or some kind of bridging vehicle or something, um, taken out by an ATGM, uh, and then quite a few other vehicles are in this. And we have seen footage from Vodyane of a number of vehicles together that were taken out. I wonder whether it was these vehicles. They all sort of stop there, not quite sure what's going on. And then you kind of splice it to this. I mean, that could be anywhere at any time. But anyway, there is artillery attacking while these guys are out of their vehicle. They all make a dash for it. And then you've got, I'm not quite sure what that flash was. I mean, it's quite a large orange flash going past. Really 100% sure. And then it says something else. And then, yeah, we had a bit of a dead body there, so I had to cut that out. And then we have these. These are the large number of vehicles, and yeah, things aren't looking good for at least one of them there, going up in smoke, and yeah. And then you had these a Stugner attack on them. One was taken out just by a different Stugner by the looks of it, and then this guy takes out another one of those vehicles. So you have two taken out, and it stops there. So I mean, the video is a bit annoying. It's all a bit spliced together, um, but you get a sense that things were pretty tough for the Russians there, and that could be the video that explains this. So this is what was seen from above in Vodyane, where you had in the end seven vehicles, seven infantry fighting vehicles that were yeah, taken out, and it was pretty great destruction going on there. So initially they thought five, and then they did a recount. It was seven. So that video, you piece all this stuff together, and it appears to be connected to that. And it was, and then you look at the numbers that come out daily, and you're like, so today, I know this was before, but today you had 23 APCs, 23 other vehicles and fuel tanks. It's just a phenomenal number. And then you understand that things like this are going on, where just a whole range of equipment is taken out in one fell swoop. Now, we've had a lot of shenanigans recently about Schultz and Germany and Leopard tanks and what's going on there. And there was an interesting comment on one of my threads from a German who's commented previously, but hasn't commented for some time. Says, as a German, I was so ashamed by this reluctance to deliver leopards. I felt I couldn't even comment anything anymore. I'm glad this is over and we're all back on track. Sabarint said exactly what I would agree with, which is, so another commenter said, no need to be ashamed. Germany has helped Ukraine a lot. Yes, tanks are needed, but tanks alone will not solve the issue of the Russian invasion. True. Then there is the aftermath. Ukraine will need help for years to come. One issue never talked about is a long-term loss in GDP the casualties will cause on the Ukrainian economy. The cost to rebuild is mentioned, but if Ukraine loses 100,000 people, that is a massive long-term hit to Ukraine. It will have issues for 50 years. This reminds me that, do you know what? And there was a thread I talked about the other day. Timothy Garton Ash talked about this historian, saying that it's talking about how the Leopard's decision has actually undone all the good will that Germany had built up, all the credit it had gained for doing such a good job recently, for sort of turning their political tanker around and actually showing an awful lot of support for Ukraine. So now they are, if you include certainly in terms of military, humanitarian, and financial aid, and including what they give to the EU, Germany is now the second biggest provider of assistance to the UK in real terms outside of America. So after America, so it's America, then Germany. people talk about the UK being up there, but actually, if you take into account the EU subsidization, then Germany and France are ahead of the UK. And then if you talk about GDP, if there's a percentage of GDP, it's people like Estonia and the Baltics and Poland, I think, and so on and so forth. But Germany has had a lot of bad um, PR because of this decision, and that's a shame because actually, let's be fair, credit where credit's due. Germany has done a lot, and actually, Dom Nichols on the Ukraine Latest podcast does say this. So it starts off talking about what the Polish president has said, and then actually, does give some props to Germany, and rightly so.
The Polish Prime Minister, in response to that, has said he wants a quick response from Germany because they have now formally submitted an official request to send their tanks.
And sorry, just to state that this was before this came out yesterday, before the Germans, made their statement about Leopards, and before America has made their statement about Abrams.
And Mateusz Morawiecki has said, I hope that the answer from Germany will come quickly because the Germans are delaying, dodging, acting in a way that is difficult to understand. We can see that they do not want to help Ukraine defend itself in a wider way. Okay, right. Let's just pause and take stock here, because that's some quite strong language there from Mr. Morawiecki. I mean, I think Germans. He's saying Germans dodging, delaying. I think that's. I mean, they're delaying, possibly dodging. I don't know, acting in a way that's difficult to understand. I disagree with. It is. You could see why a lot of people say, well, they should just be sending the tanks. However, to say that it's difficult to understand why they're not is to misunderstand German politics. And we've thrashed out in the last few days some thoughts on internal German politics and the position of Chancellor Scholz's his party, the SPD, and the coalition he leads with the Liberals and the Greens. So, there's some difficult politics there, which we've tried to unpick. And I think we've done a fairly reasonable job of coming up with some analysis there. So I don't think it's fair to say it's difficult to understand. And then the comment, we can see that they do not want to help Ukraine defend itself in a wider way. No, sorry. I think that's a heat of the moment bit. Heat of the moment statement there when we look at what else Germany has done in terms of Gepard's, Iris-T, Marder, and so on, and put it together with humanitarian aid and economic aid. All told, Germany is second after the United States. Forget the aid that Russia's been sending and gifting other military equipment, but Germany is second to the US when you put the whole package together: military aid, money, and humanitarian aid. So I just want to put this in perspective. I've been bashing Germany. A lot of people have been bashing Germany. That is not to bash the country. That is to bash the decision not to allow other countries who are prepared to send their Leopard 2 tanks. We've just got to pass the two, and I don't think those comments are particularly helpful there from the Polish Prime Minister. Now, also going on today, NATO.
So I think I really thought that was spot on, and credit where credit's due. Germany have been in a difficult situation, and we do need to understand the political context within which Germany is operating, and those decisions are being made. Ramstein, it looked like this, things were going to come out of Ramstein that almost certainly was going to be Leopards being freed, if you like, and that happened. And we're there now. Brilliant. Let's get on with it and do it. So props to Germany. In so many ways, maybe that whole Leopard thing was badly handled, but there'll be reasons for that. Understanding what those reasons are, I think, is quite challenging, despite what Dom Nichols says. I think there's an awful lot of it, very interesting politics. There's legacy, and there's the relationship Germany has with historically with Russia as well. So lots to unpick in that. Okay, let's get this is the end. Way too much today. Yeah, that's me. Sorry. Some positive things, a couple of really positive things. So this is a Ukrainian mobile frontline jacuzzi. I don't know how this has got to frontline, whose idea this was or whatever, but do you know what? These guys probably do deserve a bit of good times in a hot tub. I do wonder about things like people on the front line in trenches, wonder about things like showering, cleaning your clothes, all that stuff, how long they are sitting around in really dirty clothes. I was listening to someone talk about their having to it was an American combat veteran. I think it was the American combat veteran talking about having only one pair of fireproof trousers he had to wear or something, and then he had to wear them. He only had one pair left, and he had to wear them till the crotch. Basically, he had to be taped together, the crotch, and you know. When do you get to clean these things? When do you get new uniform? When do you get to clean your body? How do you do that out in the middle of nowhere? So I don't know. I thought that was pretty cool. And this now, I showed you yesterday about. I showed you how an Australian was talking through how they had adapted loads of Nissan Pathfinders to put stretchers in the back so that they could be used on the front lines. Well, this is Russia's response to this. This is genuine as well. This is from the Russian Ministry of Emergency Situations, introducing their latest innovation, a horse stretcher for wounded servicemen. In true clickbait, you will not believe what happened next. This is absolutely delightful. And just a little bit amusing. So good idea. Let's get a really badly injured person, maybe got a spinal injury on the back of a horse, maybe a few broken bones, maybe a neck's in a neck brace. You want to be careful here, horse. You want to take this easily. Right, you've got him sorted. Is he on there? Jobs are good, and this is a pretty good idea. Because a horse won't react very much to shells going off in the area either. It'd be easily led by a handler. Obviously, I would assume this is more for the emergency services around like a forest fire or something. But oh, I shouldn't laugh. Oh dear, I don't know what that guy's going to do. Trip up the horse. Whoa, bang! Oh dear. Anyway, there you go. Yeah. Thanks for your support. Please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for people on Buy Me a Coffee today. So Cynthia Chanot, David from Scotland, and Lynn, Surprise It's Us. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Take care, and I'll speak to you tomorrow.